Hello, I hope you're having a good day wherever you are in the world. Today I'm gonna talk about anxiety again, but from another angle, from another perspective than I've done before. I've done a video about anxiety in general, like the symptoms of it and how you can regulate your anxiety. And I've also been talking about anxiety as a problem if you start to view your outer world through the lens of your inner world. So if you are very scared inside, if you are very anxious inside, and you're not aware of, and you cannot contain that feeling, it can be a risk that you start to view your outer world through this lens of fear, and then you start to see threats all around. And I've also been speaking about how that can develop, then evolve into projections. So if you're scared inside, you have anxiety inside, and then you get thoughts that match that feeling inside. And then if you're not conscious about this, then you start to get these thoughts, the projections of your inner world. You get these thoughts about your outer world and about other people. And then I said, so always be aware and consider if what you are thinking and feeling about someone else is actually about you. And I got comments about saying that. So first of all, talking about anxiety as a problem, then someone commented that, well, it can actually also be like an actual clear feeling, a true feeling about someone else, that you should actually be anxious when being around someone else, not because you're the problem, but because that person is toxic. So that's a good point. And then also someone thought it was a horrible take, thinking that you should consider what you think about someone else is actually about you, because that can also, the person thought it could encourage people to stay with toxic behaviors. So that was also a good comment, and it encouraged me to talk now about anxiety from another perspective than I've been talking about before. So from the perspective of seeing anxiety as information. And it doesn't contradict what I've said before. This is just, a continuation of how I talked about anxiety before. And I also want to add that actually the ability to see one concept from different perspectives, that really, it's actually like a sober psychedelic trip when you gain that ability, because that is actually, for example, what something like psychedelic can give you. It opens up the brain and you start to see one concept or yourself or your life from different perspective than you're used to. So you don't need psychedelics obviously to do this. You can force yourself in trying to think about one concept from several different perspectives and from several different then people's views. So when you practice that and you gain that capacity, I guess that is what then can evolve into what we would call wisdom then. So in this video, I'm going to talk about anxiety, but more as, instead of a problem, I'm going to talk about it as actually like a really, really powerful tool. Yeah. So a really powerful tool to understand yourself and the world better. And what I've said before about anxiety doesn't contradict this. But the key is how you use this tool, how you understand, and how you are able to control this tool, how you are able to contain yourself and interpret the feeling of anxiety you have, So if you have no consciousness around the anxiety, the sensation you get, if you have no awareness of it, then you just get a feeling, and then you have no control over it, and then it spills out in understanding the world with reminders of your past. It gets mixed up from your past, and you start to perceive threats, and you start to think that what you feel is true, and it just gets all mixed up. And then you have no control over this superpower that you actually have inside. So this is actually for all of you sensitive people that, we often talk about, or I've talked about more like this is a problem that you get anxious. But again, now this video is about encouragement, that this is actually a wonderful thing, that you easily get anxious. It's just that you need to, practice how to use it so that you can be clever and wise. I'm a very sensitive person, and I, get anxious very easily. But it's like really, it's something you can use to your advantage. You can read people better, and you can obviously understand and be able to protect yourself better, and also help yourself to get what you want better. So anxiety as information then. So what is anxiety then? Just to repeat. So anxiety is a physical sensation you get in the body that you could see as a sign that you are exposed to some kind of threat, right? So the body gets tense, or the body gets sick, or the body, gets, you lose your train of thoughts. You get an unpleasant sensation in the body. So you're exposed to some kind of threat. So that's point A. So that's like the first that we can all agree on, that the body get a sensation. But then where it can get all wrong is when you start to act on that sensation immediately. That's when it can, go all sorts of directions where it's not beneficial for you or your environment. So if you want to be able to use your anxiety as a barometer, you need to be patient and hold your impulses to act on it. It's like crucial. However, you also need to be aware of how it's important information so that you actually can act on it. Because again, people are different. Some people that get anxiety, they start to run immediately and they act on it, or they think things based on their anxiety. But then there are other sorts of people who act in the other way, who don't act on their anxiety. They get anxious and then they get very passive and they sort of shut down. So they don't act, but that's not good either, to just be passive and dead. And then you don't use the anxiety at all. I don't know. Maybe it's better though than to start to act on. It's better for everyone else actually. If you want to choose what way of dealing with anxiety is better, it's probably better, at least for everyone else, if you're the person who just get passive. The other way of dealing with anxiety can be worse both for you and for other people. But anyway, how to start to use your anxiety as a superpower, as a tool that is good for both you and other people, is to first be aware the sensation of anxiety. Okay, I'm exposed to some sort of threat. Just stop there. I'm exposed to some sort of threats, because you don't know. You don't know what it is. You don't know if it's from yourself, or it's because you're picking up someone else's anxiety, or it's because someone is dangerous, or it's actually because someone is nice. It's actually because someone is nice. Yeah, so that's a common trigger actually to anxiety if you have a lot of traumas in your past. So that's actually especially why I stressed before that always consider what you think about someone else is actually about you. This is for those people who actually get anxious when someone is nice. Why do you get anxious when someone is nice? Well, because it's a threat. If someone shows you love and kindness, it's a threat. Because you don't know, you don't understand it. You never had love and kindness in your life because you were brought up with neglect. So when you're then adult and someone is nice and loving and kind towards you, you get suspicious and you get scared. You get anxious. You don't know it. So then it's very problematic if you start to think that that person actually is a threat. If you don't understand, whoa, this is not about that person. It's about the love that this person is giving me and the feelings that get triggered in me as a response to the love that the person is giving me. So in those cases, it's especially important to not act on the anxiety before you know for sure what it's about, because then it can develop into a self-sabotaging behavior, which I've had videos about before. So you can watch those if you're the kind of person who get anxious around love and kindness. Because it's sort of, aggravating. It's sort of frustrating to get anxious when someone is kind toward you and you need to sabotage it because you need to sabotage for yourself as a protection. But anyway, first step when you feel anxious is to just be aware of it. And also to then develop a mindset of curiosity. So I know it's not pleasant, it's always super weird to be, curious about something that isn't pleasant. But still, you need to start to think of it as information and that your body is amazing, that it's actually, it's actually helping you. It's giving you an unpleasant feeling to get your attention so that you can make better choices for you. But what choices are completely up to you in understanding like the anxiety. It's actually, you can think of your anxiety as a kid, like a kid that is very, wise and open and sensitive, but is not very good in interpreting everything and thinking rationally about things. So it's just, it's just showing up and it's present and it's just showing you what's there. It's showing you what's true and the rawness in it. But then it's up to your adult brain to really respect this kid, this child that comes to you in the form of anxiety, and to really treat it as it's important and as it has something to say and it wants to help you. However, then it's up to your adult brain to interpret what is it that the child is trying to show you, and to just be sure to just trust that it is important. And by the way, I'm going to make a video also about how to listen to kids and what comes in the role of the parent, because it's so much focus on how to be a good parent when the focus actually should be, well, how can we be better for the child, for the children? That's the focus, where the focus should be. So anxiety in the form of a child, or the child, look at it that way. And so you want to be curious. Even though the child is annoying, it's information, it's information. If the child is not happy, it's not the fault of the child. If the child is screaming, if the child is defiant, if the child is angry, if the child is sad, it's not the fault of the child. It's information about the parent, about the context in which the child is living in. Children are carriers of information. They are fresh to the world. And so is your anxiety. So it's the same thing. So look at your anxiety as a precious child that you are responsible for understanding. That's your responsibility. So if the child comes to you, aka the anxiety, and you just look at it and the child is, say, angry, and then you don't listen, you don't think about, you don't observe, so why is the child angry, you don't sit with it and be patient and just contain the space and hold the space for the child, so that you can start to really understand the child's perspective and where it's coming from, and eventually can think about what do I need to do something with this anger, or is it, do I need to change something, or is this just that, maybe the child is just angry because, it's an emotion, it's nothing wrong, or is it something that's wrong? It's so many questions you can have, and you can't answer them if you start to act immediately. So maybe you're a parent and you can recognize yourself. Okay, your child is angry, and then yourself, you get anxious and you start to act, and either you try to suppress the feeling, and okay, so I can do better. Let's do this, and we can be happy instead, and you can get this toy or whatever. So just make the anger disappear, or you yourself get angry and stop it, and try to control it. Or you're the passive parent who sort of just don't do anything when the child is angry. You're just not listening, and you just leave it. So all of these ways that the parent can deal with the child's unhappiness or a child's emotion is the same. It has the same problem in it as the ways you can deal with your anxiety. The signs from your inner world that you're trying to get your attention. It's the same thing, and it's problematic because none of these, when you start to act immediately or you're not acting at all, you don't do it for the child to make it better for the child. You do it because to escape something. You do it to avoid something in yourself. But when you sit with the child, aka your anxiety, when you sit with it, when you observe, when you have patience, when you listen, when you take in the child's perspective, aka your anxiety, and wait and trust, then you will have the chance to actually start to understand the anxiety. What does it want to tell you? Or understand the child. Why is the child angry? So first comes the understanding, and you need to trust this. You need to trust that your ability to start to understand, when you just let go of immediately acting on your anxiety, or let go of just closing your ears and eyes and be passive. You need to trust how your brain can actually deal with the information when it's calm. And I said this in other videos, you cannot think straight when you are in a rush or when you are shut down. It's not optimal for your thoughts. It's not an optimal environment for your intelligence. Optimal environment for intelligence is when you are calm and when you give yourself some space and the other person and your anxiety, and you trust, you have faith. And then eventually there will come an understanding if you are really, awake and really practice the act of listening and taking in something else, another perspective. So when you start to then understand your anxiety or the child, then eventually you can then decide. You can make better decisions if you are supposed to act on your anxiety, or if you just should take care of yourself and be nice with yourself until the anxiety pass, or if it's, actually an information about something to change in yourself or in your life. So this perspective of looking at the anxiety as a child, to be open and to be patient, it can give you the blessing of having access to a superpower, which is actually what it is. when you get kids, which many parents, they don't understand. Maybe never, or some later in life, that, wow, kids are really access and direct access to, to some super wise, universal, fresh, wise, but old knowledge. That kids are really, the gateway to heaven, really. So when you have kids, you have the possibility to have access to so deep wisdom if you just understand how to listen and how to use this access. And many don't. Many they don't. Instead, we as an adult think that we are the wise one, the leaders, and that the kids should listen to us. But actually, it's the reverse. We should listen to the kids. However, the adult's role is to guide and to have, the rules or the boundaries for this wisdom to grow and to cherish it. But so the same thing goes with your anxiety, that actually you can, I think you should start to be thankful that if you're a person that gets anxious easily, it's a blessing, actually. And it's a blast from the past. Is that how you say it? Is that like a reminder of something innocent? Or it can be a reminder of the past that needs to be worked through. Or it can be a reminder that, you are exposed to threats. So let's look at some examples of how you can use then your anxiety as a superpower. So coming back to this comments about, but you can have anxiety as information, or what if you're actually with a toxic person and then you're just considering that you're the problem? So look at that. So let's look at that problem. So let's say you are with a person who, let's say, never listens to you, a person who's very filled up with themselves, and who always plays the victim. So nothing that, even though you have valid points, the person doesn't listen to it. So whenever you talk to this person, you feel anxious. And you want to say to this person, you never listen to me. So you get anxious, and then you get the thought, my partner doesn't listen to me. And you want to say it to the person, you never listen to me. And then in another video, I said, always consider that what you want to say to the other person is actually about yourself. Okay, so let's go through that process first. I want to say, you never listen to me. If I first think, I never listen to myself, is that true? And if you answer yes to that question, it's true, I really listen to myself. How do I know that? Well, first of all, I often get anxiety, but I try to solve the anxiety by telling how the other person should change instead. That's true. So I don't really listen to my anxiety. I just act on my anxiety. Okay, so that's an example of how I act on my anxiety. I get anxious around a person who never listened to me. And then immediately when I get anxious, I tell the person, you never listen to me. Right? So that is an example of I don't listen to my anxiety. I act on my anxiety. I act on it. You never listen to me. Okay, so I answer yes, I really listen to myself, actually. And funny enough, I often end up with people who don't listen to me either. Why do I do that? Because it matches my reality very well. It matches the narrative I have about myself very well. I am a person who you shouldn't listen to. I don't think so. And I think I deserve to be with people who don't listen to me either. Okay? So that's what I mean. Always consider that what you say about someone else is actually what you think about yourself. So you answer, yes, I rarely listen to myself. And then, okay, I'm going to start listening to myself. Okay, I have anxiety now, being around this person who doesn't listen to me. If I listen to that, Then I first take care of my anxiety by telling myself, you deserve, your voice is important. You are important. You are worthy. You deserve to be listened to by yourself. Don't worry if no one else listens to you. Other people are not as important as you are. Your worthiness is not decided by other people. You are the person who decides your worth. So actually, it doesn't matter if no one is listening to you in the first place, because what matters most is that you know that you are one to be listened to. So go through that round first. If you get anxious with someone who doesn't listen to you, listen to your anxiety and take care of it. Stay with the child. The child is saying, no one listens to me. What do? Do you go and talk to all the people who doesn't listen to the child? No. You become the first one who listens to the child and you stay with the child. I am here. I listen to you. I'm here waiting for you. I'm open and I have time, and you are important because you are important to me. So I will listen to you. I'm staying. So you do the same thing with your anxiety. You stay with your anxiety. You stay. So you need to do this step first in order to be able to use your anxiety as a tool, as a superpower. You need to do this step first. You cannot cheat. You understand what I'm saying? You cannot jump over the step and when you're anxious, directly act, you don't listen to me. That's cheating. You need to first be the first one who take responsibility of listening to yourself and your anxiety. And I know this, many people think that they're listening to their anxiety by telling other people to listen to them. And that's such a... I understand that one thinks that I'm listening to my body, I'm listening to myself, I'm listening to my anxiety, but actually you don't. You're cheating when you are trying to make someone else listening more than you do, or listen first before you do yourself. So when you've done this step, when you've stayed with your anxiety, and you really believe in it, that you are worthy of being listened to. If you're still then anxious around, then you shouldn't actually be anxious around someone who isn't listening to you no more. You know why? Because why should you be anxious if you listen to yourself? If you really believe your worth? If you really trust that your voice is important, then what should you care about how someone else is treating you? I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything about it, but I'm just saying, why should you care that much about why someone else is not listening to you? So the first sign, actually, that you've started listening to yourself and really starting to use anxiety as information is that you are not anxious with the person who's not listening to you anymore. You're not anxious with that person. And that's perfect, because when you're not anxious around a person who is neglectful to you, which is actually only about that person is neglectful to him or herself. So that's why he or she is neglectful toward you. But when you're not anxious around that person, you can make a lot better, choices around that person. You can choose if you want to engage in pointing it out. You're not listening to me anymore. And I promise you, the difference when you say you are not listening to me when you're anxious, and when you say it without anxiety, it's huge. How the other person will receive what you're saying. So that's actually, I know this is a bit confusing, but the way to use your anxiety as a tool, the reward of it is that you are not anxious anymore when you've done the steps that I'm saying. And then you can actually speak up towards the so-called toxic person and say, you are not listening to me. And I promise you, when you say it without anxiety, then it's a sign that you truly, truly believe it. And it will be, well, you can't guarantee that this person who is neglectful will receive it, but it feels so much better for you. And then you will notice, well, this person is not listening now either. And then you know, as I spoke in another video about projections, then it's no use to stay and argue. You can't argue with someone who isn't listening, who's just locked down. So then the best thing is just to not engage, to not discuss in that moment, to just back off and leave. So that's actually the most powerful intervention you can do in that case, because then you're not listening to that person. And you're not listening to the neglect, I would say. Because you are listening to the worth of the person, because you want to connect. That's why you're saying you're not listening. But when you leave and you're not engaging in a discussion, you're not listening, you're not giving any attention to the neglectful behavior. That's, the way to go there. But if you wouldn't have listened to your own anxiety, then you would probably have stayed with this toxic person. You have stayed and argued. You would have stayed with this person who neglects you, trying to convince him or her to not neglect you and to listen to you, and you would have stayed. And then maybe eventually you break up. But if you don't do all of the steps in using your anxiety as information, you will probably end up, there is a big risk anyway that you will end up with the same sort of dynamic in another relationship. So that's why I'm really stressing that you should, do your inner work first before you start to speak up to other people. I mean, you can do both, obviously. It's never, all that black and white, but be aware of that it always starts with you. And having your anxiety is not a problem as long as you take responsibility for it. And it's the same thing, if you're with a person who projects a lot on you, and if you don't think that you are worthy of being treated with respect, if you also believe in the projections that's coming your way, then you will have lesser chance to actually draw boundaries or walk away from the relationship or to speak your truth. And by the way, to speak your truth to someone that's definitely a goal, I would say, in life, to find your truth. But what's your essence and what's your voice? But to be able to find your truth and your voice, then you have to first, get control of your anxiety. AKA, what I mean that is to take care of it and be responsible for it and not act on it or ignore it or, think that it's about someone else to calm your anxiety down. It's your task as an adult. As a child, it is the task of the parent, but many of us haven't had those kind of parents who could, regulate our anxiety and learn and teach us how to do it ourselves. So to summarize, anxiety is great. It's a great tool. It's a precious child that wants your attention, and it's your responsibility to start to learn how to take care of that child, to listen to it, especially when, growing up, nobody else did. I'm sorry, but it's your responsibility, and I know it's difficult. I know we want someone else to do it for us, and it might help if someone else also helps us, but in the end, it's your responsibility to start to listen to your anxiety, take care of it, so that you can use it as a wise signal that something is off either in you or something is off about someone else, so that you can start to speak your voice, speak up, or leave toxic situations. super important. And in the end, to put it simple, it's all about really getting to know yourself as deeply as possible. That's like your superpower. That's like the best tool you can have to really get to know yourself. It goes beyond learning different strategies and learning, how to navigate life. It's actually really about getting to know yourself as deeply as possible so that you can make wise choices for yourself and in the end for others, learning how to stand up for yourself, but also then to be open and to invite people when they want you well, when they come with love or knowledge that is good for you. So it's all a give and take, this what we call life. So if you listen to all this, if you listen to the end, please let me know by making a comment in the comment section, or if you have questions, so I know how this lands with you. And I'm happy to do more videos around this theme. So thank you for your engagement. It helps me to create more content. And thank you for this time. I hope you have a great day.